The line stretched around the block, and Nora Blake wasn't surprised. She'd counted on anger, on principle, on every chef in a 50-mile radius who'd watched Meridian Global slap her name, the one she'd registered, trademarked, and bled over for 3 years, onto a sterile concept restaurant with none of her soul and all of her intellectual property. Nora's table. They'd stolen it. So she'd opened a pop-up called Nora's Real Table in the narrow storefront right next door, and the people came. "Dos órdenes more, chef," Marco called from the window, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of her 8x10 kitchen. Steam rose in waves. The scent of achiota and citrus and browning butter filled the tight space until it felt like breathing. In summer and fury. Nora wiped her hands on her apron, the one embroidered with N. Blake, owner-chef in her mother's handwriting, and plated another trio of scallops. Salt-crusted, silk-scented, kissed with piloncillo citrus glaze and a whisper of cilantro oil. Simple. Hers. Impossible to fake. Each plate went out with a small card, hand-stamped in her own ink. "This is my food, my name, my receipts. Ask me why I'm next door." By 7 p.m., she'd served 60 covers in a space designed for 20. By 8 p.m., local food bloggers were posting. By 8:30, the door opened and a man walked in who didn't belong. Nora knew wealth when she saw it. Tailored charcoal suit, Italian shoes that had never seen a kitchen mat, and a jaw so tight she could have sharpened her knives on it. He moved through the narrow dining room. 4 mismatched tables, Edison bulbs, and her grandmother's sideboard. Like he owned it. He didn't. "We're at capacity," Nora said, stepping out from behind the line. She didn't raise her voice. Didn't need to. "There's a list." His eyes, dark, sharp, unreadable, flicked to her apron, her flour-dusted hands, the bead of sweat at her temple. "I'm not here to eat." "Then you're blocking my door." "I'm Adrian Vale." He said it like she should know, like it mattered. She did know. She just didn't care. "Felicidades," Nora said, voice flat. "You want a medal or a reservation?" His expression didn't shift, but something in his posture did. A tiny recalibration, as if he'd expected fear and found bedrock instead. "You're using my company's branded name." "My name," Nora interrupted. She stepped closer, close enough to see the faint shadows under his eyes, the small scar at his brow, the way his breath came a little too controlled. "Registered in 2022. I have the filing. I have the trademark. I have the emails where your consultant asked me about coastal Latin fusion and walked out of here with my portfolio. That's not... I have receipts, Mr. Vale." She pulled a folded paper from her apron pocket and pressed it into his hand. "And if you'd done even 30 seconds of due diligence, you'd have them too." For a moment, he just stared at the paper, then at her. The dining room had gone quiet, the kind of quiet where everyone pretends not to listen while leaning in hard. "Taste it," Nora said. "What?" "You came here for a fight. Fine, but taste the food first. Then tell me I stole something." She didn't wait for an answer. She turned, walked back to the line, and plated a single scallop. Perfect sear. Silk center. The glaze caught the light like amber. And the smell, butter, citrus, piloncillo, salt, rose between them like a dare. Nora set the plate on the bar top. "This is what you're selling under my name. Except it's not. Because your kitchen doesn't know what piloncillo is, and they sure as hell don't know how I brown butter." Adrian Vale stared at the plate, then at her. He picked up the fork. The room held its breath. He cut into the scallop, a clean edge, the kind that only comes from a screaming hot pan in perfect timing, and brought it to his mouth. Nora watched his face, watched the exact moment the flavor registered. The pause, the slow blink, the way his jaw unclenched just a fraction. He set the fork down. Face? Nora said softly. Saw. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. Adrian Vale looked at her, really looked. The kind of look that traveled from her hands to her face to the small card still sitting on the bar beside the plate. When he spoke, his voice was lower, quieter, almost careful. If what you're saying is true, it is, then someone in my company committed fraud. See? His gaze didn't waver. I need to see everything. Nora crossed her arms. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. You walked in here ready to shut me down. I did. And now? Adrian Vale picked up the paper she'd given him, unfolded it, and scanned the first 3 lines. His expression shifted, briefly, barely. But she saw it. The crack in the armor. The flicker of something that might have been anger or shame or both. Now, he said, voice quiet and sharp as a paring knife. I need to know who lied to me. Nora held his gaze. The kitchen clattered behind her. The line was backing up. Her phone was buzzing with new orders. But she didn't move. Tomorrow, she said. My lawyer's office, 10 a.m. Bring your files. I'll be there. Good. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Looked back. The scallop, he said. What about it? It's perfect. And then he was gone. Nora stood there for 5 full seconds, her pulse loud in her ears, before Marco leaned through the window and said, Chef, we got 8 more orders and the stove's about to catch fire. She rolled her shoulders back, tied her apron tighter. Please, let's cook. The rain started just as Nora reached Harper's office. Not the soft kind. The kind that came down in sheets and turned the sidewalk into a river and made her sprint the last 20 feet under her inadequate jacket. She hit the overhang outside the building at the same moment someone else did, and of course, it was Adrian Vale. They both stopped, breathing hard, close enough that she could see the rain in his hair, the way his shirt clung to his shoulders, the leather portfolio tucked under his arm like he'd shielded it with his body. You're early? Nora said. So are you. They stood there, shoulder to shoulder under 3 feet of shelter, and watched the storm turn the street gray. Neither of them moved toward the door. I didn't sleep, Adrian said abruptly. Nora glanced at him. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring out at the rain, jaw tight, that same control from last night, stretched even thinner. I read everything, every email, every filing, every contract. He turned then, and the look in his eyes was raw. You're right. I know. I didn't. He stopped. Reset. I built Meridian on transparency, on doing things the right way, and someone on my team committed theft. They did. His hands flexed on the portfolio. I need the emails, the drafts, anything that proves it. I have them. And I need to know why you didn't sue. Nora's laugh was short and bitter. You know how much litigation costs? I'm a single-location chef with a line of credit and a dream. You're a multi-million-dollar corporation. I'd be bankrupt before discovery. So you opened next door. So I made you come to me. The rain hammered the awning above them. A car passed, spraying water onto the curb. Adrian shifted slightly, not closer, but not away either. And Nora caught the scent of his cologne. Something clean. Cedar, maybe. It didn't belong in her world of garlic and citrus and hot oil, but it didn't feel wrong either. If I fix this, Adrian said quietly, I need your cooperation. I can't fire someone for theft without proof. You'll have it. And if it goes public, it will go public. Nora turned to face him fully. I didn't do this to stay quiet. He met her eyes. I'm not asking you to. The words hung there, small and deliberate. Nora studied his face. The exhaustion under the composure, the rigid line of his shoulders, the way he held himself like he was carrying something heavy and refusing to set it down. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "My parents built a tea import business from nothing. They taught me that your name is the only thing you own outright. If someone steals it," his voice went quieter, "you lose everything." Nora's chest tightened. "Yeah. So I'll fix it." He said it like a vow. "But I need everything you have." "Okay. Today." "Okay." They stood there, rain drumming overhead, close enough now that Nora could feel the heat coming off him despite the cold air. His shoulder brushed hers, just barely, just enough to send a shock of awareness down her spine that she absolutely did not have time for. Adrian noticed. She saw it in the way his breath caught, the way his gaze dropped to her mouth for half a second before he looked away. "We should go in," he said. "Yeah." Neither of them moved. Then Harper's voice cracked through the intercom. "Nora, if you're out there getting soaked, I'm charging you for my time." The spell broke. Nora huffed a laugh and reached for the door. Adrian caught it above her head, his arm stretched past her shoulder, close enough that she could see the fine edge of his collar, the tendon in his wrist, and held it. "After you," he said. His voice was steady. But his hand, just for a second, wasn't. Nora walked inside. Adrian followed, and the rain kept falling. Harper's office smelled like old books and strong coffee. The conference table was small, scarred, and covered in paper. Nora had brought everything: printed emails, branded drafts with her handwritten notes in the margins, the original pitch deck she'd shown the consultant, receipts from the trademark filing. Adrian sat across from her, reading. He'd been reading for 40 minutes. Nora watched his face, watched the way his jaw worked when he reached the email from Jay Holloway, Strategic Development, the one asking about her favorite suppliers, her plating style, her unique angle on Latin coastal cuisine. The one she'd answered in good faith because Holloway had said he was doing market research for a potential partnership. The same email chain that ended with, "Thanks for your time. We'll be in touch." They hadn't been in touch. 6 months later, Meridian Global opened Nora's table with her name, her concept, and a menu that looked like a sanitized, soulless photocopy of her dream. "Holloway was a contractor," Adrian said, voice flat. "Hired by Cole Dwyer, our VP of expansion." "Cole Dwyer," Harper repeated, making a note. "He signed off on the trademark application?" "He did." Adrian's hands were very still on the table. "He told me the name was original, that legal had cleared it." "Legal didn't clear it," Harper said, "because legal never saw this." She tapped the filing Nora had submitted 2 years prior. This was public record. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. "I know." Dwyer papered a fraudulent internal clearance memo, rushed a soft open under a look-alike DBA while marking Nora's registration as under review, and kept legal out of the loop long enough to get the sign up. "So what are you going to do?" Nora asked. He looked at her. "Fire him, audit every project he touched, issue a public statement, and make this right." "How?" "However you want." The words landed between them, quiet and enormous. Nora leaned back in her chair. "You can't just rebrand. You already opened. You have investors, press, a lease. I'll close it." "That's not, I will close it," Adrian repeated, and his voice was steel. "I don't profit off theft." Harper glanced between them. "There are other options." "Like?" "Licensing. Ms. Blake retains full ownership of the trademark. Meridian pays for the right to use it. Generous terms, public acknowledgement, and a seat at the table for menu development. You turn this into a partnership instead of a lawsuit." Nora's heart kicked. A partnership. With safeguards, Harper added. Your name stays yours. Your recipes stay yours. They license the brand, not your soul. Adrian was watching Nora now. Just watching. Would you consider it? I don't know you, Nora said. No, I don't trust you. You shouldn't. So why would I say yes? Adrian leaned forward, elbows on the table, and Nora saw it again. That exhaustion, that tightly wound control. The faint tremor in his hands that he was working very hard to hide. Because I'm going to prove you can. And because you deserve more than revenge. You deserve restitution. Nora stared at him, at the shadows under his eyes, at the way he held himself like a man who just discovered his foundation was rotted through and was refusing to let the house fall. I need time, she said. Take it. And I need to see your audit. Everything Dwyer touched, every lie he told. You'll have it. And I want to be there when you fire him. Adrian's mouth curved, just barely. Not quite a smile. Done. Harper cleared her throat. I'll draft a preliminary agreement, non-binding. You both review, we reconvene in 72 hours. Agreed, Adrian said. Nora nodded. They stood. Adrian gathered his files, slow, methodical, like a man putting his armor back on piece by piece. When he reached the door, he paused. The consultant, he said. Holloway, he gave you his card? Yeah, why? I'm going to find him, and I'm going to make sure he never works in this industry again. He said it quietly, but Nora heard the fury underneath, the kind that didn't shout, just burned. Good, she said. Adrian's gaze held hers for one long, humming moment. Then he nodded once and left. Harper waited until the door clicked shut. Well, don't. I'm just saying. Harper. He looks at you like you're the only thing in the room. Nora's face went hot. He looks at me like I'm a problem he has to solve. Mm-hmm. This is business. Sure. I'm serious. Harper grinned. So is he. Nora grabbed her bag and headed for the door, but her hands were shaking, and it had nothing to do with the cold. The test kitchen at Meridian Global didn't look like a kitchen at all. It looked like a laboratory, all stainless steel and glass, LED strips cold white overhead, induction burners that responded to a touch. Everything gleamed. Everything was measured. There wasn't a single burn mark on any surface, no seasoning stains, no ghost of 1,000 meals cooked in joy or desperation or love. Nora stood in the doorway and felt her stomach drop. Second thoughts? Adrian asked. Just taking it in. She stepped inside, her sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. It's very clean. That bothers you? It's just different. She set her bag on the center island. My kitchen has character, scars. This looks like no one's ever made a mistake here. They haven't. Adrian unpacked his own ingredients, glass containers labeled in precise handwriting, everything portioned and prepped. That's the problem. Nora glanced at him. He was in dark jeans and a charcoal Henley instead of the suit, sleeves pushed up, and somehow that made this feel more dangerous. Less like a business meeting, more like something else. So, why are we here? She asked, keeping her voice level. Harper sent over the preliminary licensing terms. If we're going forward, I need to understand your approach. Not just taste the final dish, see how you build it. You want to watch me cook. I want to learn from you. He said it simply, no charm, no angle. Just fact. Nora pulled out her ingredients. Fresh masa, piloncillo wrapped in paper, 3 types of dried chiles, cilantro still damp, limes so ripe they were almost golden. The smells rose between them, and she watched Adrian's posture shift, subtle, interested. And what do I get out of this? Nora asked. You see how I work. You decide if you can trust me with your name. Fair. She tied on her apron and washed her hands. What do you want to make? You first. Show me something foundational, something I can't fake. Nora considered. Then she reached for the dried chilies. She started with fire. 3 kinds of chilies, ancho, guajillo, pasilla, laid flat on the scorching plancha. Adrian stood to her right, watching, not hovering, just present. You're not using tongs, he observed. No. You'll burn your fingers. Probably. She flipped an ancho with her bare hand, fast and practiced. But metal doesn't tell me when it's done. I need to feel the heat, the weight, the way the skin changes. That's not scalable. Nora shot him a look. I'm not interested in scalable. I'm interested in right. Adrian's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Fair enough. She transferred the toasted chilies to a pot of simmering water, added cinnamon, clove, a chunk of piloncillo. The kitchen began to smell like smoke and earth and sweetness, and Nora saw Adrian inhale slowly, cataloging each layer. What is this? He asked. Mold base. Simplified version. You need the bitter, the sweet, the heat, the char. It's about balance. Like building addition movements. Exactly. She blended it smooth, her hands steady on the old-school immersion blender she'd brought from home because she didn't trust his equipment. The mixture turned glossy and dark, clinging to the spoon when she lifted it. Adrian leaned in slightly. Can I taste? Nora hesitated, then nodded. He dipped a clean spoon into the pot, brought it to his mouth. She watched his face, the way his eyes closed briefly, the slight furrow in his brow as he worked through the flavors. It's layered, he said finally. The heat comes late, after the sweet. That's the piloncillo. It buys time. Clever. He set the spoon down. You don't measure anything. I measure with my hands. That's not replicable. Maybe not in your kitchen. Nora crossed her arms. But it works in mine. They looked at each other, a beat too long, awareness humming between them, and then Adrian stepped back. My turn? He asked. Yeah. Show me what you've got. Adrian worked like he moved through the world. Precise, methodical, no wasted motion. He set out white miso, mirin, rice vinegar, a small jar of yuzu kosho, measured each one with a digital scale, whisked them together in a steel bowl over a double boiler, adjusting the heat with minute turns of the dial. Nora watched his hands. Long fingers, steady, a thin scar across his left thumb. He tasted as he went, small sips from a spoon, recalibrating each time. You're very exact, she said. I have to be. My mother taught me that cooking is respect for the ingredient, for the person eating. You don't guess. I don't guess either. I just don't use a scale. Then how do you know it's right? I know. She moved closer, drawn by the smell rising from his pot, savory, bright, umami-rich. Can I? Adrian handed her a spoon. Nora tasted. The glaze was perfect. The yuzu cut through the richness of the miso. The mirin added just enough sweet to balance the salt. It was clean and complex and completely different from anything she'd made. That's really good, she admitted. Thank you. I'm surprised. That I can cook? That you cook like this? She gestured at the careful setup, the labeled containers. I thought corporate guys just hired people. I was a chef first, Adrian said quietly. Before the expansion. Before the board and the investors and the strategy decks. I just cooked. Something in his voice made Nora look at him differently. She saw the tightness around his eyes, the way he gripped the whisk a little too hard. You miss it, she said. every day. The honesty surprised her. She'd expected walls, polish. Instead, she got something raw. "So, why'd you stop?" Nora asked. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "Because Meridian grew. And I thought scaling the company was the same as scaling the values? I was wrong. Coal. Coal. And whoever else cut corners I didn't see." He set the whisk down. "I got too far from the kitchen, too far from the part that mattered." Nora didn't know what to say to that. So she reached for a piece of fish, a single fillet of black cod, and set it on the plancha. "Let's see if they work together," she said. They plated in silence. The cod, seared perfect. Nora spooned her mole in a dark crescent on one side. Adrian drizzled his yuzu miso glaze on the other. Where they met in the center, the sauces bled into each other. Smoke and citrus, earth and brightness. Nora picked up a fork. So did Adrian. They both took a bite from the center. The flavors didn't fight. They belonged. Nora set down her fork slowly. Adrian was staring at the plate like it had just rewritten something fundamental. "That shouldn't work," he said. "But it does. Your heat, my acid. Your char, my clean finish." He looked up at her. "How?" "I don't know. Maybe because we're not trying to win." Nora met his eyes. "We're just cooking." Adrian held her gaze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he reached for a pot and started heating water. "I want to show you something," he said. He made congee. Simple, spare, perfect. Rice simmered until it broke down into silk. Ginger sliced thin, a soft cooked egg, sesame oil, scallions. He worked quietly, and Nora watched the way his shoulders relaxed, the way his hands moved with a kind of reverence. "My mother made this when I was sick," Adrian said, not looking at her. "She said food is how you take care of someone when words aren't enough." Nora's chest tightened. He ladled a small bowl and set it in front of her. "Taste." She did. It was comfort, warmth, the kind of food that felt like being seen. "Your mom's a smart woman," Nora said softly. "She is." Adrian finally looked at her. "What about yours?" "She taught me that food is how you fight back. How you say, 'I'm still here' when the world wants you small." "Is that why you opened next door?" "Yeah." They stood there, the kitchen quiet, steam rising between them. Nora realized they were close. Closer than they'd been all day. Close enough that she could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the way his breath came careful and controlled. Adrian's gaze dropped to her mouth. Just for a second. Just enough. Nora's pulse kicked. Then he stepped back, cleared his throat. "We should clean up." "Right, yeah." They worked in silence, washing dishes side by side. Every time their hands brushed under the water, Nora felt the charge of it. Every time she glanced at him, he was already looking away. When the kitchen was spotless, Adrian walked her to the door. "Thank you for this," he said. "It's just cooking." "No." His voice was quiet. "It's more than that." Nora didn't know what to say, so she just nodded and left. But as she stepped into the cold evening, her hands still warm from the water and his nearness, she realized something had shifted. They weren't just business anymore. They were becoming something neither of them had words for yet. Nora smelled trouble before she saw it. She arrived at the pop-up at 6 a.m., early, even for her, and found a white sedan parked out front. City plates, the kind of anonymous vehicle that meant paperwork and problems. Inside, a woman in a polo shirt and clipboard stood in her kitchen, health inspector badge clipped to her belt. "Ms. Blake?" The woman didn't smile. "Unscheduled inspection. We received a complaint." Nora's stomach dropped. "What kind of complaint?" "Anonymous tip." rodent activity, unsafe food storage. The inspector was already opening the walk-in, shining a flashlight into corners. We take these very seriously. Marco appeared in the doorway, still pulling on his coat. Chef, It's fine, Nora said, voice tight. Let her work. It wasn't fine. For 2 hours, the inspector checked everything. Every surface, every container, every corner of the narrow kitchen that Nora had scrubbed until her hands bled. She pulled out cutting boards, examined seals on the cooler, tested thermometers, photographed storage racks. Nora stood there, arms crossed, heart hammering, and knew. This wasn't random. Well, the inspector said finally, closing her binder. Everything's in order. Spotless, actually. No violations. So the complaint was fake, Nora said. I can't speak to that. I just inspect. The woman handed her a printed report. You're clear. Have a good day. She left. Nora looked at Marco. His jaw was tight, hands flexing. Someone's trying to shut you down. Yeah. Nora pulled out her phone and called Harper. I need you to trace something. By noon, the rumor was everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Yelp, anonymous accounts posting the same message in slight variations. Heard Nora's real table got health-coded. Yikes. Friend of a friend says they found rodents at that pop-up next to Meridian. Anyone else hear about the inspection? Not eating there again. Nora's phone lit up with cancellations. 6 reservations gone in 20 minutes. She sat in the tiny back prep area, staring at her phone, and felt the fury rising hot and sharp in her chest. Chef. Marco leaned through the doorway. Harper's here. Harper walked in with her laptop already open. It's Cole Dwyer, or someone using his office IP. The anonymous tip came from a Meridian terminal logged under his credentials. Can you prove it? I can prove the IP. The rest is circumstantial, but... Harper looked at her. It's him. He knows the audit's closing in. This is his last swing. Nora stood. Then I'm swinging back. She filmed the video in one take. Kitchen walkthrough, every surface, every storage rack. The spotless inspection report held up to the camera. Her voice calm, clear, and absolutely done with this. This is what desperation looks like, Nora said into the lens. When you can't win on merit, you lie. When you can't compete, you cheat. But here's the thing. Lies don't survive contact with truth. And I've got nothing but truth. She posted it at 2 p.m. with the inspection report attached and the caption, Receipts, Rumors. By 3 p.m., it had 5,000 views. By 4 p.m., the local food blogs were calling. By 5 p.m., Adrian walked through her door. He wasn't in a suit. Jeans, dark sweater, hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He scanned the empty dining room, she hadn't opened yet, wouldn't until the rumor died, and found her behind the bar, prepping for a service she wasn't sure would come. You didn't have to come here, Nora said. I know. I'm handling it. I know that too. He stepped closer. But you shouldn't have to do it alone. Nora set down the knife she'd been holding. Cole? Under formal investigation as of this morning. But he's trying to burn everything on his way out. Adrian's voice was tight. I'm sorry. This is not your fault. It's my company. It's his choice. Nora wiped her hands on her apron. Harper traced the IP. We know it's him, and I'm not backing down. I didn't think you would. Something in his expression shifted. Respect, maybe, or something fiercer. What do you need? Press. Real press. Someone who'll run the truth tonight. I know someone. Food blogger, but credible. She'll want a statement from both of us. Nora hesitated. Both of us? If you'll let me. Adrian held her gaze. Cole represents Meridian. If I don't stand next to you and condemn this publicly, it looks like I condone it. Do you? Nora. Her name in his mouth was quiet and fierce. I'm here. She believed him. Okay, she said. Let's do it. The blogger arrived at 6 p.m. A sharp-eyed woman named Keisha, with a camera, a notepad, and a reputation for not pulling punches. You've got 10 minutes, she said, and I'm posting tonight, so make it count. Nora nodded. She started to retie her apron, hands shaking, adrenaline and fury still coursing through her, and fumbled the strings. Here. Adrian stepped behind her. Let me. His voice was low, private. Nora went still as his hands reached around her waist, gathering the apron ties. He worked slowly, carefully, fingers brushing the small of her back as he knotted the fabric. She could feel his breath against her neck, the warmth of him, the steadiness. You've got this, he murmured, close enough that only she could hear. Nora turned her head slightly. Their faces were inches apart. She could see the tension in his jaw, the focus in his eyes, the way he was holding himself together for her. Adrian, chef, Marco called from the kitchen. They're ready? The moment broke. Adrian stepped back, hands falling away, and Nora felt the loss of his presence like cold air. She turned, met his eyes. Thank you. Always. They walked to the front together. Keisha didn't waste time. Ms. Blake, you were hit with a health code rumor today. How do you respond? Nora held up the inspection report. With this, 0 violations, spotless kitchen. The complaint was fabricated. Do you know who filed it? We have evidence suggesting it came from Meridian Global. Nora kept her voice even. Specifically, from an executive currently under investigation for intellectual property theft. Keisha's eyebrows rose. She turned to Adrian. Mr. Vale, do you have a comment? I do. Adrian's voice was controlled steel. The individual in question is Cole Dwyer, our former VP of expansion. He's been terminated pending a full audit. If he's responsible for this, and evidence suggests he is, Meridian will cooperate fully with any legal action Ms. Blake chooses to pursue. You're condemning your own executive? I'm condemning theft and cowardice and anyone who uses my company to harm an honest business person. Adrian looked directly at the camera. Ms. Blake's kitchen is impeccable. Her food is exceptional. And this smear campaign is exactly what it looks like. Desperation. Keisha scribbled notes. And what's your relationship with Ms. Blake? Nora's pulse kicked. Adrian didn't hesitate. Professional, he said. We're finalizing a licensing agreement. Ms. Blake will retain full ownership of her trademark. Meridian will compensate her fairly and publicly credit her work. So this isn't personal? It's deeply personal, Adrian said quietly. Thanks. Because integrity is personal, and Ms. Blake's integrity is unimpeachable. The way he said it, the weight in his voice, made Nora's chest tighten. Keisha smiled. I think I have what I need. The post went live at 9 p.m. By 10 p.m., Nora's phone was flooded with messages, support, apologies, new reservations. By 11 p.m., the original rumor accounts had gone silent or deleted. By midnight, there was a line outside her door. Nora stood in the kitchen, staring at the crowd through the window, and felt the fight drain out of her all at once. Marco was laughing, incredulous. Harper texted, "You did it." But Nora wasn't thinking about the victory. She was thinking about Adrian's hands on her apron strings. His voice in her ear, the way he'd stood beside her without hesitation. She stepped outside, found him leaning against the brick wall next door, hands in his pockets, watching the line. You're still here, Nora said. Wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm okay. Good. They stood there in the cold, the noise of the crowd a distant hum. Adrian looked at her, really looked, the way he had in the test kitchen, the way that made her feel seen and unmade all at once. "Thank you," Nora said softly, "for showing up." "I'll always show up," Adrian said. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow. And the space between them, professional, careful, bounded by contracts and caution, started to feel like a line neither of them wanted anymore. Nora stepped closer. "Adrian." Her phone buzzed. "Harper. Audit results in tomorrow. Get some sleep." The moment passed. Adrian saw her screen and nodded. "Tomorrow. Tomorrow," Nora echoed. He walked away, and Nora watched until he turned the corner. The line outside her pop-up was still growing, people stamping their feet against the cold, eager to eat her food and prove that the truth mattered. Marco poked his head out. "Chef, we opening or what?" Nora smiled. "Yeah, let's cook." She went back inside, tied her apron tighter, and let the rhythm of the kitchen steady her. But even as she plated scallops and called orders and moved through the controlled chaos she loved, her mind was somewhere else. Tomorrow the audit would be final. Tomorrow Cole would answer for what he'd done. Tomorrow everything would change. She just didn't know how much. 3 days later. Tomorrow stretched into 3. The auditors kept pulling threads, and the scope blew wide. Adrian's office was quiet. The audit had taken too quiet. The kind of silence that came after a storm, when the damage was done, and all that was left was to count the cost. Nora had spent those 3 days in a strange liminal space. Cooking, serving, trying to pretend the waiting wasn't eating her alive. Harper had called twice with updates. The auditors were thorough. They'd found everything. The report was damning. Adrian had texted once, "It's almost over. I'll call you when I know." And now here she was, sitting across from him, no desk between them this time, just 2 chairs angled toward each other in the corner by the window. The city lights stretched below them, cold and distant. The audit report sat on the low table between them, 200 pages of evidence that Adrian had clearly read multiple times. His eyes were shadowed, his jaw tight. Cole was due in 15 minutes. "You don't have to be here for this," Adrian said. Nora looked at him. "Yes, I do. It won't be pleasant." "Good." He almost smiled. Almost. But the tension in his shoulders, the tight set of his jaw, told her how much this was costing him. Not just the firing, the knowledge that he'd missed it, that someone in his company, someone he'd trusted, had stolen and lied and burned everything Adrian had tried to build. "How are you doing?" Nora asked. Adrian exhaled slowly. "I've been better." "That's not an answer." "I know." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. "I'm angry. At Cole. At myself. At the fact that I built a system where this could happen. You didn't steal from me. But I created the environment where someone else could." He looked at her, and his eyes were tired. "That's on me." Nora wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that intention mattered, that he'd fixed it, that he wasn't responsible for someone else's corruption. But she could see the weight he was carrying, and she knew he wouldn't put it down until this was finished. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Vale, Mr. Dwyer is here." Adrian straightened, his expression closed, smooth, cold, the CEO again. "Send him in." Cole walked in like he owned the room. Expensive suit, confident stride, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He nodded at Adrian, glanced at Nora with thinly veiled contempt, and sat down without being asked. "Adrian, I got your message." "What's this about?" Adrian didn't answer. He slid the audit report across the table. Cole's smile faltered. What is this? Read it. Cole opened the file. Nora watched his face as he scanned the first page, then the second. The color drained from his cheeks. This is emails between you and contractor Jay Holloway, Adrian said, voice flat. Documenting your instructions to gather proprietary information from Ms. Blake under false pretenses. Forged legal clearances on the trademark application. Unapproved budgets, falsified board reports. That's not, I didn't, you did. Adrian's voice could have cut glass. And then you tried to destroy her when she fought back. The health inspection tip? We traced it. Your office, your terminal. Cole's jaw worked. He looked at Nora, then back at Adrian. This is a misunderstanding. It's theft. It's industry standard. Don't. Adrian leaned forward, and the fury in his voice was barely controlled. Don't insult me by pretending this is normal. You stole her work. You lied to me. You compromised everything this company stands for. Adrian, if you'd just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Adrian stood. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. Legal will be in touch about restitution. Cole shot to his feet. You can't do this. The board has seen the report. They agree. This is because of her. Cole spat, gesturing at Nora. She's got you twisted up, making you think. Get out, Adrian said quietly. The door opened. 2 security guards stepped in. Cole looked between them, his face red, his hands shaking. Then he grabbed his jacket and stormed toward the door. He paused, looked back at Nora. You think you've won something, but you're just another charity case to him, another PR move. That's enough, Adrian said, voice sharp. Cole sneered and left. The door closed. The room was silent. Adrian stood there, staring at the door, his shoulders rigid. Nora could see the tremor in his hands, the way he was breathing too carefully. Adrian. He didn't turn. Adrian, look at me. He did, and the exhaustion in his face, the shame, the anger, the raw edge of someone who just had to burn down part of his own legacy, made her chest ache. I'm sorry, he said. You don't have to. I do. He crossed the room and sat down across from her again, closer this time. This was my company, my responsibility. And I failed you. You didn't steal from me. But I built a system where someone could. I didn't ask the right questions. I trusted the wrong people. I got so focused on scaling that I stopped seeing what was happening in front of me. His voice dropped. And you paid the price. Nora leaned forward. You also fixed it. You audited everything. You fired him. You're making this right. It doesn't undo what happened. No, but it matters. Adrian looked at her, and something in his expression cracked. He bowed his head, just slightly, a gesture of respect and remorse that felt cultural, intentional, and Nora saw the weight he was carrying. I need you to know, he said quietly, that I see what this cost you. The months of fighting, the money, the fear that no one would believe you. He looked up, and his eyes were bright. I see you, Nora, and I'm sorry. Her throat tightened. She reached out, tentative, testing, and touched his hand. His fingers curled around hers immediately. They sat there, hands clasped, the city glittering below them, and Nora felt the last wall between them start to crumble. I see you too, she whispered. Adrian's breath caught. He shifted closer, and Nora didn't pull away. Their knees touched. His free hand came up, hovering near her face, not quite touching. Nora? Yeah? Can I? Yes. Their foreheads touched first. Gentle. Seeking. His hand cupped her jaw, thumb brushing her cheekbone, and Nora's eyes fluttered closed. The kiss started soft, reverent, questioning, his lips against hers, warm and careful, like he was asking permission with every breath. Nora answered by leaning in. The kiss deepened. Months of tension. Respect turned to want, the careful boundary they'd maintained finally giving way. His hand slid into her hair. Her fingers gripped his sweater. It wasn't frantic, it was inevitable. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Morning came soft and golden. Nora leaned against the counter, suddenly aware that everything had shifted. They'd crossed a line last night, changed the stakes. And now, in the gentle morning light with coffee brewing and his laptop open on the counter, they had to figure out what that meant. "We should probably talk about," she started. "We should," Adrian agreed. He poured 2 cups, handed her one. Their fingers brushed. "But first, look at this." He turned his laptop toward her. The screen showed a draft press statement. Meridian Global announces partnership with chef Nora Blake, terminates executive for IP theft. "I'm releasing this today," Adrian said. "Full transparency. Cole's firing, the licensing deal, the fund we're setting up for other small businesses harmed by corporate IP theft." Nora read it twice. "This is a lot. It's the truth. It's going to be a firestorm." "I know." He met her eyes. "Are you ready? Are you? With you?" "Yes." The certainty in his voice made her believe it. "Okay," Nora said. "Let's do it." Adrian reached for her hand. "What happens now?" "We go public. With the deal. With what Cole did." She paused. "And maybe with us. If you want." "I want." He said it without hesitation. "But only if you're ready. We can keep this private until—" "One thing at a time," Nora said, smiling. "Let's survive the press conference first." "Deal." They stood there in his kitchen. Morning light streaming through the windows, coffee cooling in their hands. And Nora realized she wasn't afraid anymore. They'd built something real. Something earned. And whatever came next, they'd face it together. Outside, the city was waking up. Traffic beginning to hum, people heading to work, the world turning. But in here, it was just the two of them, standing at the edge of something new. "Press conference is at 2, Adrian said. "Harper's meeting us at noon to review the statement." "Okay." "Nora." He set down his cup and took her hand. "Whatever happens today, whatever questions they ask, whatever the fallout is, we face it together." "Together," she repeated. He kissed her then, soft and sure, and Nora let herself believe it. 3 hours later, they'd find out just how much together would cost. The press conference was supposed to be simple. Clean narrative. Meridian Global acknowledges theft, terminates executive, partners with a wronged chef. Justice served, integrity restored, everyone goes home. That's what Adrian had told the board. That's what Harper had prepared for. That's what Nora had steeled herself for as she stood backstage at the Meridian Conference Center, smoothing down the navy dress she'd borrowed from Harper because her chef whites didn't feel right for this. Adrian stood beside her in a charcoal suit, reviewing note cards he didn't need. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the careful control in every movement. "You ready?" he asked. "No." "You?" "No." He looked at her then, and something in his expression softened. "But we're doing it anyway." A production assistant with a headset poked her head through the curtain. 2 minutes, Mr. Vale." Adrian nodded. Nora's stomach twisted. "Hey." He caught her hand, squeezed once. "The truth is on our side." "I know. And I'm not going anywhere." She squeezed back. "I know that too." The assistant returned. "Mr. Vale, Ms. Blake, you're on." They walked out together. The conference room was packed. Media from 3 states, cameras positioned at every angle, a wall of microphones at the podium. Nora recognized faces. Local food bloggers, business reporters, the journalist from the Times who'd been following the story. The lights were too bright. The room was too warm. Adrian stepped to the podium first. Nora stood to his left, trying to keep her face neutral while her heart hammered. "Thank you for coming," Adrian began. "I'm here today to address a serious matter involving Meridian Global and chef Nora Blake." He laid it out methodically. Cole's theft, the forged approvals, the consultant scheme, the smear campaign. He named everything, spared nothing, and Nora watched the reporters scribbling furiously. "Cole Dwyer has been terminated," Adrian continued. "We are pursuing full restitution for Ms. Blake, and I'm announcing today that Meridian Global is establishing a fund, initially seeded with $2 million, to support small food businesses harmed by corporate intellectual property theft." Murmurs rippled through the room. "Additionally, we are proud to announce a licensing partnership with chef Nora Blake. She will retain full ownership of her trademark. Meridian will compensate her fairly and provide resources to expand her concept, on her terms." He looked at Nora briefly. "Ms. Blake is an exceptional chef whose work deserves recognition, not theft. I'm honored she's giving us the opportunity to make this right." He stepped back. "We'll take questions now." Hands shot up immediately. Adrian pointed to a woman in the front row, Reuters by her badge. "Mr. Vale, when did you become aware of the theft?" "When Ms. Blake presented evidence directly to me. I authorized a full audit immediately." "Why didn't your legal team catch this before the restaurant opened?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Because the VP responsible deliberately bypassed proper channels. That's why we've restructured our approval process to prevent this from happening again." Another reporter, middle-aged man, business section. "Ms. Blake, what made you decide to partner with Meridian after they stole from you?" Nora stepped to the microphone. Her hands were shaking, so she gripped the podium. "Because Mr. Vale took responsibility," she said. "He didn't make excuses. He didn't bury it. He audited his own company, fired the person responsible, and offered restitution. That's integrity, and that's worth partnering with." The questions continued. The timeline, the terms of the deal, the fund details. 15 minutes in, Nora started to relax. This was working. They were controlling the narrative. Then a voice from the back. "Mr. Vale, what's your personal relationship with Ms. Blake?" The room went still. Nora's breath caught. Adrian's expression didn't change, but she saw his hand flex against the podium. "We're business partners," Adrian said evenly. "But you've been seen together outside business hours, at a restaurant, multiple times." Nora recognized the reporter now. Tabloid blogger, the kind who trafficked in gossip and innuendo. "I visited her restaurant to understand her work," Adrian said. "That's part of due diligence. So you're saying there's nothing personal between you?" The question hung in the air like a trap. Nora's mind raced. They could deny it, keep it buried, protect the optics and let the story die. Or they could tell the truth and let the chips fall. She looked at Adrian. He looked back. And Nora saw the decision in his eyes before he spoke. "That's not relevant to," he started. "Yes," Nora said. The room erupted. Adrian turned to her, surprise flickering across his face. Nora stepped closer to the microphone. "Yes," she said again, louder. "We're together, as of 3 days ago, after the audit was complete, after the deal terms were negotiated, after everything was documented and legal." "Nora," Adrian said quietly. "No." She looked at the reporters, at the cameras, at the room full of people ready to twist this into something ugly. You want to make this about me sleeping my way into a deal? Fine, let's talk about it. I spent 3 years building my brand. I registered my trademark legally. I was stolen from by a corporate executive who thought a small chef wouldn't fight back. And when I did fight back, with evidence, with receipts, with a lawyer and a line around the block, Adrian Vale did the right thing. He audited his company. He fired the thief. He offered fair restitution. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands didn't either. So, yes, I'm seeing him. Because he's a good man who stood up when it mattered. And if that makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem, not mine. The room was silent. Then Adrian stepped beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Miss Blake is right, he said, voice carrying across the room. We are in a relationship. It began after all business terms were finalized. The deal stands on its merits, her intellectual property, her evidence, her right to restitution. Anyone who suggests otherwise can review the documentation. It's all public record. He looked directly at the tabloid blogger. And if you're more interested in who I'm dating than corporate accountability, you're in the wrong room. Someone in the back laughed. Then someone else. The tension cracked. The Reuters reporter raised her hand again. Mr. Vale, can you speak to the fund you're establishing? What oversight will it have? And just like that, they were back on track. The press conference ended 20 minutes later. Nora walked off stage on shaking legs, Adrian right behind her. Harper was waiting in the green room, laptop open, already monitoring social media. Well, Harper said, that was a choice. Is it bad? Nora asked. Define bad. Harper turned the screen toward them. The responses were mixed. Some outlets were leading with the fund and the partnership. Others were definitely going with the relationship angle. But underneath it all, the comments were surprisingly supportive. Good for her for not backing down. He literally fired his own VP and gave her $2 million. That's not a scandal, that's accountability. They're both adults. The timeline checks out. Move on. It's not a disaster, Harper said finally. The truth is on your side, and you controlled the narrative before they could twist it. Nora sank into a chair. I shouldn't have said it like that. Yes, you should have, Adrian said. He sat beside her, loosening his tie. They were going to dig. Better to get ahead of it. Your board is going to lose their minds. The board already knows. I told them this morning. He met her eyes. I wasn't going to lie about you, Nora. Not for optics, not for anyone. Her throat tightened. Adrian. His phone buzzed. Then Harper's. Then Nora's. Harper looked at her screen and smiled. Keisha just posted. Chef Nora Blake and Adrian Vale prove integrity isn't incompatible with romance. More businesses should be this transparent. It's already got 10,000 shares. Nora's phone kept buzzing. Messages from Marco, Chef, you're trending. From her mom, Miha, call me. From other chefs she knew offering support. I think... Harper closed her laptop. I think you might have just won. Nora looked at Adrian. He was watching her with that expression again, the one that made her feel seen and safe and slightly terrified all at once. We won, Nora said. Yeah, Adrian agreed quietly. We did. They left through the back exit to avoid the remaining cameras. Adrian's car was waiting, sleek, black, driver already holding the door. They slid into the back seat, and the moment the door closed, the noise of the world disappeared. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Adrian laughed, short, disbelieving, tinged with relief. That was insane, Nora finished. I was going to say brave. I panicked. You didn't. He turned to face her. You stood up there and told the truth. You didn't let them make it ugly. I outed us on live television. You took away their power to use it against us. He reached for her hand. That was smart. And brave. And very, very you. Nora felt the adrenaline finally starting to crash. What happens now? Now? Adrian glanced at the driver. James, can you take us to Brooklyn? Chef Blake's restaurant. Of course, sir. He looked back at Nora. Now we go back to your kitchen, and we start planning the restaurant we're going to build together. Just like that? Just like that. He squeezed her hand. Unless you want something else? Nora thought about it. The press conference, the scrutiny, the choice she'd made to stand beside him publicly and own it. No, she said. That sounds perfect. The car pulled into traffic. Outside, the city moved on. People rushing, living, unaware that Nora's entire world had just shifted on its axis. She leaned her head against Adrian's shoulder. He wrapped an arm around her. And for the first time in months, Nora let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. They'd weathered the storm together. Now they just had to build something beautiful on the other side. 6 months later. The sign went up on a Tuesday. Nora stood on the sidewalk, coffee in one hand, the other shielding her eyes from the morning sun, and stared up at the brushed brass letters mounted above the door. Nora's table chef, Nora Blake in Meridian Global, her name, front and center, exactly where it belonged. It looks good, Adrian said beside her. It looks real. It is real. Nora took a breath. 6 months ago, she'd been running a pop-up out of spite and survival. Now she was standing in front of a 3,000-square-foot restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows, an open kitchen, a wood-burning oven, and a dining room that seated 60. Hers. Well, theirs. She glanced at Adrian. He was staring at the sign too, and there was something soft in his expression. Pride, maybe, or relief. They'd spent 6 months building this, arguing over finishes and menu layouts and whether the bar should face the kitchen, Nora's vote, or the street, Adrian's. They'd compromised on diagonal. They usually did. You ready? Adrian asked. For opening night? Absolutely not. He smiled. Good. Me neither. They walked inside together. The kitchen was alive. Marco was already at the line, prepping mise en place with 2 new cooks Nora had hired from culinary school. The smell of roasting chilies and browning butter filled the air. The wood-burning oven was heating, the flames licking the stone in hypnotic waves. Everything gleamed. Everything was ready. Almost. Chef, Marco called, your mom's here, and she brought an army. Nora turned. Her mother swept through the front door with 3 aunts, 2 cousins, and enough Tupperware to feed a small country. Mija. Her mom grabbed Nora's face and kissed both cheeks. Look at this place, Mira. It's beautiful. Mama, you didn't have to bring. Nonsense. Opening night, you need food for family. She switched to rapid Spanish, gesturing at the aunts, who were already unpacking tamales and arroz con gandules and flan. Adrian approached, and Nora's mom zeroed in on him immediately. Adrian. She said his name with a perfect rolling R. You take care of my daughter, yes? Every day, Mrs. Blake. Good. She patted his cheek. You're a good boy. Skinny, but good. Adrian's mouth twitched. I'll work on that. Nora's mom winked and swept off to commandeer the kitchen. Nora turned to Adrian, biting back a laugh. She likes you, Nora said. She thinks I need to eat more. She thinks everyone needs to eat more. The door opened again. This time it was Adrian's parents, elegant, composed, carrying a beautiful ceramic tea set wrapped in cloth. Adrian's mother bowed slightly to Nora. For your new kitchen. Tea is the first thing you share in a new home. Nora accepted it carefully. touched. Thank you. This is beautiful. You honor our son, his father said quietly. That is beautiful. They moved past to greet Adrian, and Nora stood there holding the tea set, her chest tight with something she couldn't name. Harper arrived next, lawyer bag swapped for a bottle of champagne. Then the food bloggers who'd supported Nora from the beginning, then regulars from the pop-up, then friends and strangers and people who'd followed the story and wanted to see the ending. By 5 p.m., the dining room was full. By 6 p.m., the kitchen was a controlled hurricane, and Nora had never been happier. She moved through the service like a dance, calling orders, tasting sauces, adjusting heat. Her hands knew what to do, her body remembered the rhythm, and the kitchen, her kitchen, responded like an extension of her will. Marco plated scallops with piloncillo glaze. One of the new cooks, Lynn, was working the wood oven, pulling out blistered vegetables with perfect char. The other, Jamie, was on apps, plating ceviche with steady hands. And at the pass, Adrian stood beside her. He wasn't cooking, he'd made that clear. This was her kitchen, her vision. But he was expediting, calling times, making sure every dish that left was perfect. They moved around each other seamlessly, a rhythm they'd built over months of late-night menu tests and early morning prep sessions. Fired 2 scallops, 1 ceviche, 1 short rib, Adrian called. Heard, Marco and Jamie answered in unison. Nora tasted the short rib glaze, her mole base with Adrian's miso reduction, the marriage they'd perfected in that sterile test kitchen half a year ago. It was perfect, complex and balanced, and theirs. She looked up. Adrian was watching her. What? She asked. Nothing. But he was smiling. You're just really good at this. At cooking? At everything. Her face warmed. Sap. Guilty. An order came back. Someone wanted to compliment the chef. Nora wiped her hands and walked out to the dining room. It was her pop-up regular, the woman who'd been there on opening night, the one who'd shared Nora's story cards when this whole thing started. Chef Blake. The woman stood, beaming. This is extraordinary. I'm so glad you didn't give up. Thank you for believing in me, Nora said. We all did. The woman gestured around the room, full of faces, some familiar, some new, all here because they'd chosen to be. You earned this. Nora's throat tightened. Enjoy your meal. She walked back to the kitchen, blinking hard. Service ended at 11 p.m. The last guests left happy and full. The kitchen was clean, the line broken down, the staff exhausted and grinning. Nora paid them out with generous cuts. This was their victory too, and sent them home. By midnight, it was just Nora, Adrian, Harper, Marco, and both sets of parents. Sitting around the bar with the lights dimmed and leftover flan passed around in small bowls. To Nora, Harper said, raising her champagne glass. To integrity, Adrian's father added. To never giving up, Nora's mom said fiercely. They toasted, they ate, they laughed until Nora's sides hurt. And when everyone finally left, kisses and hugs and promises to do it again soon, Nora and Adrian stood alone in the empty dining room. The city hummed outside. The kitchen smelled like smoke and citrus and possibility. We did it, Nora said softly. You did it. No. She turned to him. We did. Adrian pulled her close. How does it feel? Terrifying, exhilarating, right? Yeah. He kissed her forehead. Same. They stood there for a long moment, swaying slightly, exhausted and alive. Then Adrian stepped back. I have something for you. Adrian, you already, just wait. He disappeared into the kitchen and returned with 2 small cups, one filled with dark coffee, one with pale tea. Cafecito and sencha, Nora said. From your world and mine. He handed her the coffee. To everything we built. Together. They clinked the small cups. Drank. The flavors mingled on Nora's tongue, bitter and bright, warmth and calm. Everything that made sense when it shouldn't. I love you, Adrian said quietly. Nora's heart stopped, started, raced. I know we haven't said it yet, he continued. And if it's too soon. I love you too, Nora interrupted. He smiled, that real, unguarded smile she'd come to know. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her then, soft and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, Nora took his hand. Come on. Where? I want to show you something. She led him through the kitchen to the walk-in cooler, opened the heavy door. Inside, bathed in soft LED light, she'd hung a single lantern, the same kind her abuela used to keep in her kitchen. For luck, Nora said, and to remember where we started. Adrian looked at her, at the lantern, at the kitchen beyond, gleaming and ready and theirs. It's perfect, he said. We're perfect, Nora corrected. Well, we're us. That's what I said. He laughed and pulled her close, there in the walk-in with the lantern casting warm light over them. And Nora thought about the journey that had led here. The theft, the fight, the choice to trust instead of retreat, the slow build of something real. She'd started with Salt, the sharp sting of injustice, the fight to reclaim what was hers. But she'd found Silk too, the softness of partnership, the give and take of love, the knowledge that she didn't have to do it alone. What are you thinking? Adrian asked. That I'm glad you walked into my pop-up that night. Even though I was an arrogant jerk? Especially because you were an arrogant jerk who learned. He kissed her again. I'm still learning. Good. Me too. They stood there, wrapped around each other, the restaurant quiet around them. Tomorrow they'd open again. They'd cook and serve and build this dream one plate at a time. Tomorrow there would be new challenges, new growth, new chapters to write. But tonight was theirs. Salt and Silk, fire and balance. Two people who'd fought their way to something honest and beautiful and earned. Nora Blake had taken back her name, and in the process, she'd found her partner, her equal, her home.